Hola a todos, bienvenidos a Charlas con Juan. Hoy tenemos una edición especial. Estamos ya recibiendo a nuestra audiencia en la sala. Esperemos unos segundos para que recibamos a todos. Bueno, vamos a empezar. Nos están saludando desde Guatemala. Hola, Patricia. Hoy les tengo una edición increíble, una edición súper especial. Hoy vamos a hablar de un tema que es uno de nuestros temas preferidos. Hola, Santiago, desde Bariloche. El tema de la educación. La educación, la seguridad física, que para nosotros es un tema absolutamente primordial y fundamental. Y para eso tenemos una invitada de honor, invitada estrella, quien es profesora asociada en el Departamento de Relaciones Internacionales en la Universidad Hacettepe en Ankara, en Turquía. Doctora Şebnem Udum, ¿cómo estás? Udum.
Hola, hola Juan. Gracias por invitarme. Muy bien, muy bien, muy bien. Muchas gracias. Estoy muy emocionada de estar con ustedes.
Les voy a pedir el favor a todos que por favor pongan en mute su llamada. Gracias. Creo que por error pusieron mute el mío y yo estaba hablando al mute. Şebnem, es un placer tenerte con nosotros hoy en Charlas con Juan. Todo para nuestra audiencia que está hoy en día uniéndose. Şebnem habla español perfecto. Dice que no habla perfecto, pero sí habla perfecto. Y hoy vamos a estar hablando un poquito pues en español, a veces en inglés. Tenemos, como vieron al principio de la charla, la opción de interpretación para interpretar lo que hablemos en inglés va a ser interpretado al español para los que deseen. Şebnem, cuéntanos un poquito, empecemos hoy contándonos un poquito de ti. Cuéntanos dónde naciste, de dónde eres, cómo llegaste a donde estás.
Muchas gracias. Estoy en Ankara ahora y soy profesora de Relaciones Internacionales y estoy muy feliz de ver mis colegas de Grecia. Hola, Alexandra.
Hello to everyone. Thank you for the link.
Hola a todos, gracias por el enlace.
Thank you for coming.
Muchas gracias por estar acá.
Estudié de los temas de nuclear en 2000, entre 2000 y 2002 o 3. Eso es un periodo muy importante para el mundo, no solamente para las relaciones internacionales.
Not only for international relations. And I worked at the James Martin Center for Nuclear Studies y también en el Instituto Monterrey de Estudios Internacionales, que se llama ahora el Instituto de Middlebury de Estudios Internacionales.
Son muy importantes instituciones en el tema de nuclear. Y después mi doctorado.
Topics and my PhD, I did it in international relations and I did it on nuclear energy and specifically the debates of nuclear energy that were carried out in Turkey.
soy un miembro de INSEN,
Ujú.
International Nuclear Security Education Network, el network muy importante para la educación nuclear del Organismo Internacional de Energía Atómica.
Ok. Y
Y enseño la seguridad física en Turquía y para las audiencias distintas internacionales como de Europa o de Asia y
ujú.
ahora de Latinoamérica.
Gracias, sí, eso esperamos, claro que sí. Pero, ¿y estas, desde hace cuánto tiempo das estas clases? ¿Hace cuánto enseñas temas de seguridad física?
Más o menos 10 años, pero en mis clases de relaciones internacionales en la Universidad de Hacettepe, ahora vamos a empezar el curso de seguridad física y salvaguardas en el nivel de doctorado en el semestre próximo.
Ok. ¿Y
Pero
dónde naciste tú?
en
¿Dónde
Turquía,
naciste? ¿Dónde naciste? ¿En Turquía?
sí, en Turquía, en Ankara,
Ah,
en
ok.
la capital.
¿Y has vivido ahí toda tu vida?
Sí, pero estudié en los Estados Unidos
Sí.
entre 2000 y 2003.
Turquía, ¿cómo es de lindo? Es el país más hermoso más hermoso del mundo,
Gracias.
espectacular. Şebnem, gracias por estar acá con nosotros de nuevo para hablar de este tema de educación. Eh, aunque el tema más importante, digamos, de estas charlas siempre ha sido educación, quería aprovechar, no perder la oportunidad de hablar un poco sobre no proliferación.
Ujú.
Voy a empezar por ahí y quería ver si nos podías contar y si quieres podemos cambiar a inglés si te sientes más cómoda, hablar un poquito de qué es la no proliferación.
Sí, puedo cambiar en inglés. Um, it is important perhaps to
Bien, es muy
explain
importante tal vez explicarlo en
because there is
inglés
a
porque
sentence, perhaps it's
hay,
very cliché, but
tal vez esto es
it's
muy
the
cliché, pero
prevention of
yo
spread
diría
of
que en una
weapons of
frase
mass
sería la
destruction.
prevención de la distribución de armas de destrucción masiva. Ahora, necesito
Carry the audience to the concept of a weapon.
llevar a la audiencia al concepto de un arma
Because
primero para poder explicar este
we
concepto. Así que
it inevitably takes us back
inevitablemente
to
esto nos
the
lleva
reality of
de
human
vuelta a la
existence and
realidad
how we want to
de la humanidad
survive.
y de cómo queremos
And
sobrevivir.
from the early ages
Y
on,
desde
the first
las
thing that we did
primeras
to
etapas de la
survive
historia, lo primero que hicimos para sobrevivir como
was first
especie
to eat
fue comer,
and
por
to
supuesto,
fight
y luego
or to
Ujú.
defend ourselves.
Sí.
And that's why perhaps I'm doing both as the unique woman on the planet who knows how a nuclear weapon is made and how 5 types of kibbeh is also made.
That's great. I love keeping.
That's how I like to define myself. I don't know if you know what kibbeh is.
Yes, and you're the only woman in the world that knows those 5 recipes and how the weapon is made for sure.
Exactly. And sometimes I even explain to my students of a plutonium implosion bomb by giving an example of kibbeh.
Oh, yes? Give us this example. This is great. Please give us this short version of this example.
Okay, now this province is
entonces
going to be flooded because it is probably
esta provincia se va a inundar porque es muy probablemente la primera vez que
talked about
este
Latin
tema se
America,
habla en Latinoamérica. En la parte noreste
my
de
ancestors
Turquía, allí es desde de ahí son mis ancestros, de
it is
hecho,
called Bitlis,
y se llama Biglis.
coming from an old Roman commander called
Y esto, el nombre es bajo, o está, le sigue un nombre de un comandante romano
within the
que
kibbeh.
peleó hace
We
mucho
don't
tiempo. Y en el
shoot
kipa
into
no
the
se
kibbeh
usa,
because
por
it's a small
ejemplo,
fatty part of the animal. which is when it is in room temperature, it is cold and solid.
Yes.
But when it is boiled within the kippa, within the water, it becomes liquid.
Okay.
And so when you put pressure on it in order to eat it, it explodes in your mouth. And so
Wow.
it's called in the provincial slang, the kippa that explodes.
Okay.
So that's why I sometimes give that example of how it is made by to explain how the plutonium implosion bomb works. Of course, this is not an exact match of it, but
Yes.
when you want to teach a social science student of a technical thing, you need to use such examples. And this is something that I perhaps mastered while teaching nuclear security to diverse audiences.
Yes, that's key.
And I also delivered presentations in a couple of venues, including the IAEA, because you may be coming from a technical background, a professor in nuclear engineering or radiation physics, etc. But you may have to give a training or a class to people who are coming from totally different discipline. And that's why you need to choose and pick the themes or the similes that you need to use so that they can understand. And the key to doing that is to consider the audience, the people in front of you at the age of 11, which means they are intelligent but uninformed. So you need to treat them, no matter how old they are. If they are uninformed, you have to treat them as if they are at the age of 11.
You remind me of a very dear friend of mine that is an international conference speaker today in these times, and he does a conference of business. It's a business conference, and he presents in all the most important venues in the world, and he actually uses music to bring all these analogies to business. No, the presentation is called Virtuoso, and what do you need to be a virtuoso in music, and how it assimilates to what do you need to do in business. And so it brings me back to what you say, because this topic of education, being able to transfer these concepts effectively to people of all different audiences, concepts that are very technical, no, in nuclear security.
Exactly.
Require all these techniques that if you sit down in a lecture purely academic, you're not going to understand easily.
Exactly. And I'm not coming from an education background, meaning that I didn't take the courses that normally, the teachers are taking, like we call them formation classes, or the techniques of education. It just perhaps I naturalized myself to becoming a teacher, so that my main goal was to make the students to really learn and remember what I taught them, even years after the class. And this is what is happening. For the technical terms, it is also important as well, but I think the first thing for education is to create the need to receive.
Debería ser crear la necesidad para recibir la información. Por ejemplo, en turco, la palabra estudiante en la época antigua, esta palabra que voy a decir de hecho proviene del árabe, era talebe, y proviene de la palabra solicitar, la persona que solicita algo. ¿La persona que solicita qué? Pues información en este caso. Así que cuando el estudiante quiere aprender, lo primero, por ejemplo, que uno debe hacer en términos de enseñar seguridad física es hacer que las personas vean que la amenaza es real. porque algunos de los estudiantes que he tenido en el pasado, después de la sesión, lo primero que me decían era, profesora, ¿no está exagerando un poco usted? Y la verdad eso no me hacía sentir muy bien, porque como mencioné al inicio, viví en Estados Unidos entre los años 2000 y 2003. Me disculpo, no escucho bien porque hay micrófonos abiertos. Y aunque,
I mean, please, please, anyone that has
por favor, las personas que tengan los micrófonos abiertos pueden cerrarlos. Gracias. Listo, puedes continuar. Incluso cuando estábamos en la costa oeste de los Estados Unidos,
Feeling and almost the trauma of anybody who was there at the time in New York and DC. And it also helped me to really internalize what I was doing at the time then. I was a student and also I was working on these issues. Probably the new generation already knows this from the news or the text or the books, but I lived it. And when I live it, it is easier for me to transmit that information directly to who is listening to me. To feel it in your nerves is critical. That is written into your brain, and it is easy for you also to convey that feeling to your students or the audience. And this is why I think education in this sense has to be face-to-face so that you can convey that message. And on the other side of it is probably those who teach, especially about this technical issue, should not miss out the international relations part of it. And this is my advantage. Because we can see where the threat can come from, how the threat is evolving or transforming, who those actors could be, who would set an eye on these materials, and what kind of an attack are they planning or can they plan. Otherwise, as you gave that example from your friend who was teaching that class by music, I also have a similar simile for that. I have a talent in singing, but I couldn't go to the conservatory. So I am not able to read the notes when it is in front of me.
Okay.
However, when I hear a musical piece, after a couple of repetitions, after listening to the song a few times, I can sing it. But that's it. It is the song sung from the person who sang it before, but not through the notes.
Okay.
If I know the techniques of singing and the notes and maybe the variations that I can make, that would give me a wider space to sing the song better and perhaps to change it, to give it the new tones or new tempo. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And when you just take nuclear security from the technical aspect and not taking care of the international relations, political science, the actors, the threat assessment, etc., you would be singing not from the notes, but from the ear, from the pitch that somebody had put you, okay, this is the threat and this is what you should do within a facility or immediately outside of the facility. But it is only the target, or maybe the means of transport. It is only the target. Who? You should answer the question, who, why, how, and what should we expect for the future? So I think I am straddling both sides, the social science, and I kind of educated myself with the 101s of the technical side of nuclear security that gave me the perspective of a bird's eye view.
I think that one of the things that you talk about that catches a lot my attention is this part of the threat, this belief that that comes from that a student has to have to be able to really absorb this information that you're teaching. No, this word that you're saying that comes from Arabic, that is the demand. That demand for information comes from a need to know, and you are not going to express that demand if you're not convinced that you need it, right? And if you're not, so it brings back this topic of actually the education on the threat, right? That I personally believe that is missing a lot, no? Because there's a lot of ignorance about that, and sometimes in this area of physical security, we sometimes say, no, we can't educate people on the threat, because if we educate on the threat, then we're giving them the tools to do the malevolous act. But
Teach
without
them
that
feedback instead.
exactly, but they go to Google. But if we don't educate on the threat, then we don't create that need. No, it's that I think that is very important what you're saying.
Thank you, and please don't get it like I forgot your first question about non-proliferation.
No, I don't.
This terminology at first was used as weapons of mass destruction because we are actually falling into the military domain to understand what it is all about. And when we were in Monterrey, obviously we were talking also about the concept of CBRN, chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear material, because when we're just talking about non-proliferation or proliferation and non-proliferation, what we are focusing is the actor of state. So there are mainly two actors here. This is state versus state.
Okay.
Because in this sense, you need to look at the broader military strategies of states, and like you should
Estrategias más abarcantes del Estado, y debemos hacer preguntas.
They need to prevail in a war, how much material do they need to obtain, etc. But when it comes to nuclear security, what we are basically referring to is the non-state actor and the asymmetric war. Obviously, for nuclear security, it is not just confined, it is not just limited to terrorism, but most of what we are talking about is terrorism. And the threat that we understood, we perceived after September 11th.
Yeah.
So then the non-state actor or the terrorist groups are not after a warhead necessarily. What they are after is something else. And you need to know also about psychology and sociology of terrorism. Why would somebody become a terrorist? Or why would someone become a member of a terrorist organization? What kind of a terrorist organization are we talking about? And what kind of terrorism are we talking about?
Mm-hmm.
After 9/11, what we are talking about is something of extremist terrorism, which wants to eliminate a certain way of life. It is not limited, because I should first explain perhaps the mathematics of war here. Mm-hmm. You don't wake up in one morning and you say, oh, I want to wage war against this state. No. You always have to have a political aim. And your political aim, when you are a state, is to win a war. But when you are a terrorist organization, and the aim of terrorism is by definition in the word terror,
Yes.
is to create fear. What is fear? You cannot explain that if you don't know about psychology. To create this fear, you need to show people that you are actually able to destroy so many things, kill so many people, and that's why you need this material. So you have to roll back a little to understand why this material is so important and how much they're going to demand, in which way, in what amount, and what kind of an attack. So if you can understand this social background of all of this, then you can be more prepared to guard this material.
Because, let me interrupt you there for a minute, because I think this is a key point. If I understand what you're saying, it's that the aim is create fear, no? So
Right.
if you understand that, is different from a state actor, that the aim could be, you know, destruction or dominance. When
Right.
you create fear, then you look for the materials or whatever helps you create more fear, independently of it, if it creates a lot of damage or not. Is what is creating more fear. That's the psychology behind it, no?
Exactly. And it is, perhaps I should add a little bit for this fear. They want to create panic and anxiety in societies so that they're going to think, normal people are going to think that the state, their governments, are incapable, insufficient,
Yes.
to provide for their security. And when this happens, when people, normal people, are in fear, which means that they're not going to be able to live their lives as usual. They will be under constant panic, and there will be little to no moderation. There will be also extremism within societies. And
Yes.
this is where terrorism can win their war. Their war.
Yes, it's I think that what you're saying about understanding that psychology is key, especially in education, because or else you might be teaching something that is not what needs to be taught, you know, or what people need to understand.
Right. And people are not really, perhaps in my society, what they are encountered, what they have encountered so far was traditional or conventional explosives or weapons, and not unconventional ones.
So one of the things that we see a lot, Şebnem, is in our region, especially Latin America, we see that there's a lot of education that is required in the regulatory frameworks about physical security, but at least in Latin America, we don't see a lot of specific requirements on that education. What does that education have to include? No?
Thank you.
Is this something common in other countries in your region, or something that you see all the time, or not?
Well, thank you, because perhaps it is brought to the Turkish audience by only a handful of professors.
Okay.
And we tend to start with, in fact, I didn't encounter many who are teaching that in nuclear engineering departments, nuclear energy engineering. By the way, it is the first one was in Hacettepe. It is very also famous in Vienna as well, at the IAEA. The other side is actually taught by only some professors of international relations. And when I became a part of INSEN, I used the teaching material and the sort of the sample curriculum that was provided. But of course, there are many stakeholders, and that audience demands not that education, but the training. And this brings us to the other aspect of nuclear security. Regarding the education, there is no kind of unique way of teaching. We tend to start again with the concepts of war and state versus non-state actors, where the threat is emanating from, what are the materials, where are they, how vulnerable they are and why.
Yeah.
And what are the efforts, the international efforts to ensure nuclear security, and especially those that we tend not to see, which are except for the nuclear facilities, meaning nuclear power plants, but also research institutions and medical facilities. So what is lacking probably in the education part is that those who are receiving training are belonging to those certain institutions, such as security or power plants, operators, etc. And on the other side, those who want to receive the nuclear security education as students who would like to work in the industry or in the academia. So we don't have like a sample curriculum for everyone.
This program that you designed, is it available? Is it available that can people from other regions like Latin America have access to this program?
Well, actually, we have institution members from Brazil, from Latin America, and we had only one person from Mexico this time, but I think she was from the regulatory authority. She was not from an educational institution. So I would be happy to see many institutions, academic institutions from Latin American countries, and I would urge them to become a part of INSEN, because international, I take it again as from a social scientist, international organizations are very powerful to socialize states, and in this sense, your academic institutions, with these new concepts. And it gives an immediate and enormous spur for their teaching, their curricula. And they will have access, which is not available to everyone, but they can have access to these resources as soon as they become part of INSEN. But the NSS 12 is available, and we can see which kinds of courses that they can teach.
We will share those links with the audience after the talk, so they can have access to this material. One of the questions that I wanted to ask you is, in an organization, who do you think that has to be trained? Which one of the personas or the people that are in an organization are the most important to receive this education?
In fact, if we are talking about a nuclear power plant, if that organization is what you are meaning, is it?
Yes.
Okay, so it is actually a facility that is operated by operators, by managers, and by staff.
Correct.
So you cannot really divide a kind of hierarchy between them in terms of the awareness and preparedness for nuclear security. This is what we emphasize a lot, because we had some tabletop exercises where we studied scenarios of nuclear security incidents, where it just took only a little unpreparedness or just, I don't know, ignorance of the staff that caused so many problems, let me say.
Yes.
And that's why the second thing is also while you're giving that education or training, the most important thing is to give them the sense of both responsibility and status. The status in the sense that what they are doing is not something that is common to any operator or any staff in any power generation facility. This is an A-level facility that requires more effort. And this is human psychology again. You need to balance that responsibility versus the privilege. So if you just give the responsibility and if they don't feel important, then they may not really think that, oh, well, okay, I shouldn't really care about it. But when you both give that status and privilege, like I also feel as an academic working on nuclear security, they will be doing what they're doing by heart.
Yes. Yes, they will apply priority to that topic voluntarily. No?
Yes, voluntarily, and they will know that there will be an award or a reward at the end all the time, because within their bureaucracy, they will be seen in a higher rank.
Absolutely.
And this is important. I don't know if it is the same case in Latin America.
It is exactly the same case. I think that this is what you're mentioning. I think it's incredibly important for the construction of the security culture. No, because if you have, personally, I think that security culture, how you actually create it or how you boost it is you have to have education on the threat, which was what you were talking about. And you have to have that the people in the organization need to understand how their actions or inactions impact risk. You know, that's the part of my importance. That's the importance that I have in that process. And if you join those things together, that boosts a lot the concept of that helps you create this security culture, no?
You're absolutely right. Culture actually needs to come from something that is called a norm. A norm is a standard of behavior, which is not necessarily written on paper.
Correct.
And in order to create this norm, you need time and the cooperation of everyone. It's not like just, oh, I'm doing that and it's a norm. No, it's not. Everybody has to do it. So it's going to become normal, as we say, right? And after we create this norm, then we can go a further step to have this culture. So it's just like everybody is in mutual verification of each other. And if someone deviates from the norm, then there will be punishment. These are all sociological concepts.
Correct.
Now you're operating.
The key is to understand how these norms come to be norms. No, how do you establish these norms? And you say, and I think it's through time, through education, no, that they start becoming norms, becoming the norm, right? I think.
Exactly. And at this point, if we have time, I would like to talk a little bit about the CPPNM, the amended convention. And obviously, it is one of the most important international texts that we have about nuclear security. And it has its fundamental principles. And within that, some are standing out, at least from my perspective. And the one that I always underline is nuclear security culture. And the other is the necessity to form national nuclear security regimes. National nuclear security regimes. For non-proliferation, I always explain this to my students like that as well. When we're talking about nuclear non-proliferation regime, it is international, the international nuclear non-proliferation regime. Why? Because it is top down. The norms were created mainly out of the principles of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Yes. And they were then endorsed by individual member states. But when it comes to nuclear security, because of the threat that we have, because of all the root cause of all the problem, the non-state actor, because of the threat that we have, the nuclear security regime, the formation of an international nuclear security regime, depends from a bottom-up approach. So first of all, we need to establish and strengthen national nuclear security regime by individual states. And where is this coming from? It is coming from UN Security Council Resolution 1540, dated 2004, after September 11th, going back to square one. And it couldn't explain all this in this detail, but it was saying that states have to adopt their national regulatory frameworks, regulations, etc., in order to prevent these terrorist organizations or non-state actors to get hold of this material. And they were not just talking about RN, but they were all talking about CBRN.
Correct.
And they, at that time, they could not adopt the terminology, and they were still saying in that document, weapons of mass destruction. It was too early for that.
Okay.
So when we come to today, it is critical for us as educators to know our worth and value in the creation or in the strengthening of the national nuclear security regime. Because when we educate the students as well as the professionals, if they become our students or join our training, we create first awareness that this is real and important. And second, we raise the next generation of nuclear security specialists. And here, I would like to also remind our professor, mentor, Dr. Bill Potter of the James Martin Center for Non-Proliferation Studies. He was saying education is the most powerful but underutilized tool for non-proliferation. So we can also replace that for nuclear security.
It is.
And
you mentioned this concept of awareness, you know, that creation of awareness. I always say that awareness boosts compliance, and compliance reduces risk. So you have that creation of awareness is like you say, it's very underutilized, that the education that helps create this awareness it's a wonderful tool, no? Very powerful.
You're absolutely right about this. And as I said about this education, when you're aware of the threat, then you are more able to receive the new information. It's a mental process, actually. Normally, when people are about to receive new information, which may be conflicting with what they already know, they show resistance. But as they want to learn, and as it becomes interesting, and obviously this one is related to survival, the front lobe is going to be more open, and they will be open for receiving that new information. We have such a problem perhaps with professionals when they want to learn more about what is related to their sector, but they don't want to, I don't want to say they don't want to, but they're less receptive to the new information about nuclear security when it is not about their sector. But this is the whole.
Completely. So let me include one last question. We're coming to the end. I could sit down to talk for hours, but one of the things that I was wondering is with regards to the methodology of the education. Do you think that the current ways that education is being taught or transmitted are really the best ways? Is there a better way to do training and education on this topic, and where should we start if there is?
I think there are several institutions and also individuals who are helping this nuclear security education to become better, especially with the kind of organizational spirit of the IAEA. We are working together. We at INSEN, we have formed actually a unique, I should say, academic community about nuclear security education, and we make use of our educational tools. It is obviously right now in person, but during the pandemic, several academics and researchers have used other tools for online education, particularly when it comes to the technical side of it. I'm perhaps more advantaged because I'm in the social science and I don't have to show the parts of an equipment to the students from afar. The other is they call it, well, tabletop exercises are always great because you work on a scenario to detect the flaws in nuclear security. In most of my classes where it is applicable, I use the method of role playing.
Okay.
So I give certain roles to students. For instance, in my US foreign policy class, for them to role play a National Security Council meeting. This can be applied to also nuclear security for, assuming them as an operator, as a manager, as a staff, as a security guard in a class setting. But obviously, this will take time, but the instructor can arrange that. I think this is also very critical, as I say, to help the student to feel that feeling in their nerves. We already have the AI, the artificial intelligence, which may also give that feeling. But after you take off the glasses, then the real world is again back. However, I saw this in my students and also in myself that after the role playing, they cannot get out of their role for days.
Yes, happens to actors. Yes, it happens a lot. It's human nature, no? Yes.
Right. So I think it is possible to do that. And another could be to bring the actual people from the different sectors and also the educators and maybe the students to form a network and work together, because they will be the ones who are probably going to work together in the future. This is an important part of both, I think, education and training, because our unique aim is to establish and strengthen this the national nuclear security regime.
Dr. Şebnem, this has been amazing.
Likewise.
Thank you so much for your time. I will definitely be in Ankara sitting with you, having a coffee and talking about this more, because this topic is like I say, in GSS, in our company, in Isotope organization of education. I think it's probably the top priorities. Like you say, is the most underutilized tool that we have to fight this threat, no? That we know so well that is real. So I want to thank you again. I appreciate it. I want to take 2 or 3 minutes, the opportunity, if there's anyone in our audience that wants to comment about the talk or wants to intervene. Rosita, Dr. Rosa Torres. Rosita, adelante.
Hola.
Sí,
sí. Primero que todo, muchísimas gracias. Esto ha sido de verdad una gran experiencia para mí oírte. Bueno, como sabes, yo ya estoy retirada, pero fui jefe de la autoridad reguladora de Colombia y parada en la orilla exactamente
Colombia, and I was actually on the opposite end of yours because I was a technician. I've had a life process learning in terms of learning about the social aspects of all these topics.
Comités donde se diseñan los programas de capacitación, debería estar sentado el regulador, porque realmente quien está encargado de la verificación es el regulador y es quien, como usted bien lo ha dicho a lo largo de su disertación, quien establece los requisitos. ¿No cree usted que en estos comités debería haber como un grupo de reguladores que se encargara también de estar y de interactuar con la academia para tener, digamos, herramientas educativas mucho más poderosas? Y de nuevo, muchísimas gracias. Me he convertido en una fan suya.
Muchas gracias, Rosita, una vez más por esta entrevista y pregunta. I will explain this in English again. Of course, the regulator is quite important, and I think I should give this message to every regulator in any country of any member state of the amended CPPNM, that there is more or less, but always, a gap between the regulatory authority and the academia. And this is not on purpose that they want to be apart, but there is a problem of language to understand each other. Because the regulatory authority is representing a bureaucracy, which is doing its own job from the technical side. But the IAEA also has, in addition to INSEN, what is called the Nuclear Security Support Center and the network about that. And not every country has this, what we call NSSC. So what is critical for the establishment and the formation of the national nuclear security regime is that these two that work together, which means the academics, researchers, and also basically it's the regulatory authority under that, should work together. For the training or education, it doesn't matter. Some problems are emanating from the bureaucratic cultures. And this is why it is critical to elevate the nuclear security culture over the bureaucratic culture. And this is a wall sometimes. Sometimes it's a small brick, but usually it is a high wall that we need to crack. And this can happen again with education and awareness.
Şebnem, I think this has been very enlightening. And this last concept that you touch, this challenge of language between regulators and academia, I think can extend to regulators and users or educators and audience, no? And
right.
This challenge of finding this common language to be able to work together better, no?
Yeah, if I have like 1 minute, I could also mention the difference in the terms between nuclear safety and security, because most of the regulatory authority and the people over there are already oriented, and they have worked and they have mastered over nuclear safety. Obviously, it is actually coming from this operational culture to ensure operational health and safety of a facility. And nuclear security is rather a new concept, and usually it is situated under the departments of nuclear safety. So there is an inevitable hierarchy, and nuclear security cannot find its true place, I should say. And perhaps except for in English and in French, it is the two concepts are causing a lot of confusion.
Yeah.
In Turkish, for instance, they are just the opposite when it comes to the use in international relations. So it took me and my colleague from King's College, Zenobia Homan, to write a piece on language in terms of nuclear security, because in Spanish as well, the term nuclear security is seguridad física. That this física is coming from the term physical protection. And nuclear safety, they don't even, I mean, you don't even use this term safety, but it is seguridad tecnológica, technological security, if I translate it verbatim, which doesn't make sense in English.
Yes.
And it is a problem in Russian, Dutch, even Arabic, and in many other.
Even in Greek.
Even in Greek, yes. Thank you, Alexandra. And so if the people, the stakeholders don't understand the language, the exact language, I mean, in literal terms, if they don't understand the terms that they're talking about, how on earth can they work together? This is not easy, and I think I am the first person to introduce the exact term in Turkish for nuclear security in the official correspondence between the institutions, because at first the Turkish Atomic Energy Authority was using a different term, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs was using another term.
You should publish a dictionary. You should publish a translation document.
Exactly, a glossary.
Find the equivalents in each one of the cultures.
Because when I first say this to my students and the people alike, the term nuclear security in Turkish doesn't even make sense to them. And it sometimes sounding funny. Right now, we internalized it and we use it. But it's always safety. The exact term for security is used for the term safety in Turkish. So it even gives the nuclear safety experts or professionals a kind of superiority in identity. This is something that we need to really crack.
We need to really crack it. So
thank you.
Shebnem, thank you very, very much. I'm going to finish this interview echoing a comment by one of the members of our audience that says that Shebnem is brilliant. It doesn't matter in which language you say it. So
that's Santiago.
Yes, Santiago is saying it. So it's a beautiful comment. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. I really hope we can sit down one day and continue our talk, and that you come back and join us in another program to help create this awareness in our region and in the world of these important issues. Dr. Shebnem, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Muchísimas gracias. And it was also an honor for me. Thank you for inviting me once more. And your energy also made me feel as if we were sitting together in front of all this audience in some kind of great conference room. And thank you also to your audience. And hopefully my Spanish is going to be better next time, and we will all carry it out in Spanish.
Perfect. Next one we'll do in Spanish. Shebnem, thank you.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Gracias a todos por asistir a nuestra charla y espero verlos pronto dentro de 15 días con otra charla de seguridad física de los materiales radioactivos. Gracias a todos. Buena tarde.